to Jonathan in the city. Hi, Jonathan. What's up? What are you doing?
Hey, just doing a little bit of planning. I just want to say, guys, trading for Chase Young, Chase quarterbacks, it's kind of like a no excuses move, and I would bet that you may be able to, create diamonds with the kind of pressure that's on Steve Wilks' head. So in this game, they better get to Fabio, man. They don't get to Fabio, it's gonna be trouble. The Jacksonville Jaguars are for real, and if they don't win, and if they lose that fourth in a row, I'm gonna be here Monday calling you guys because we're all gonna be singing the bridge part of JNR's Sweet Child. Where do we go? Where do we go now? Where do we go?
Oh, where do we go? Yeah, Jonathan.
There it is. Jonathan brought his heat today. It actually took me a moment when he's like, if they don't get to Fabio.
Totally.
I'm like, Fabio? Who's Fabio? I'm like, oh, I get it.
Or Sunshine, depending on what reference you prefer.
Trevor Lawrence. I'm in that whole like fantasy football dilemma because I got a bunch of Jags, and there's all these bye weeks. I have no choice but to play them against the Niners this weekend.
Yeah.
But won't be rooting for them, that's for sure. And I sort of agree with Jonathan. Fair or not, I think it's very easy for fans to look at an acquisition like Chase Young. You add him to what is already supposed to be a great defensive line, and you go, all right, if they don't produce now, I know there are a lot of people that go, oh, wait, you putting it all on Steve Wilks? No, I'm not putting anything on Steve Wilks. I'm putting everything on everyone. But knowing how sports works, if you've got a D-line like that and they don't produce, what to do? I just ask it that. Open-ended question.
Well, you don't fire Nick Bosa. You don't fire players under contract in the middle of a season. So Chase Young comes in for a week and he doesn't get any sacks and you give up 31 points. Well, you don't cut Chase Young, and Javon Hargrave has got a huge contract and a big dead cap number, and same thing with Armstead, and Bosa's dead cap number's got to be north of $100 million. So if you want to do something, what do? We got to do something. Well, you fire the coach, and you don't fire Kyle Shanahan because he just got an extension and he's not the DC. So you fire the DC. And does that work? Does having a new defensive coordinator, does that new guy come in, or is it somebody on the staff that you elevate? Somebody who's never been a defensive coordinator before? Is that the fix?
No, I don't even want to think about like people, like you said, fired at week 9. That doesn't feel right. But I don't know what the answer to the question is either. What to do? I don't think sit there and do nothing is the answer either. Like you cannot, I think we all agree, you cannot let this season be squandered, right?
Of course not.
There's too many good players. There's too much that's set up for you. A division on a platter, a conference that only has 3 or 4 good teams. And who knows? Maybe they've only got 2 good teams. Because right now, I don't know that the 49ers are one of them.
Right. Maybe it's Detroit and Philadelphia.
I think they are, but they've got to they got to turn that around.
Show it.
Yeah, you have to go be it. You're a really good team. You don't go a month without winning a football game. You can't do that. Let's go to Pat in Stockton. Hey, Pat, what's up?
It's a pleasure to talk to you guys, and thank you for finally getting to the segment where smart callers call in.
Here we are. We've arrived.
Okay, guys, listen, seriously. Brock Purdy is responsible for money, management, and production. All of those players you named, the defensive tackle from Philly, Chase Young, the reason you're able to give Debo an extension, the reason you're able to get ready to re-sign Ayuk, all of that is possible because of Brock Purdy. You're paying him $800,000 a year. The guy's got a 14-3 record. I don't care if we lost 3 games in the beginning of his career, which you would have never got to game 4, or if it's 3 games now. The kid is 14-3. He was playing prior to 3 games ago like a first-round draft pick, by the way, which saved the GM's job, because that was a fireable offense to give up 3 first-round draft picks, 2 seconds, and then trade away the guy that you gave all that up for. Purdy saved the day, man. Purdy stopped us from being set back a decade, man. And I'm going to ride with this kid. I believe he's going to come out of a little funk. And by the way, I think he was concussed on that one interception he threw. The last interception he threw, I think he was concussed. The other interception was the receiver's fault, and then the kicker missed the field goal. We're talking about one loss, man. We're talking about one loss that I think he's responsible for. Purdy is in good shape. We're in good shape because of Purdy, man. And I think we need to give the kids some time, ride with them, and I think we're going to blow the doors off of Jacksonville on Sunday. Well, and Chase Young was a hell of a signing.
Yeah, Pat, that's a really good call. Listen,
it's a pretty good call.
Well, I conceptually, I know where he lost you, and I'm going to agree. Like, we have to, unfortunately. Well, I guess you don't have to. You can think whatever you want.
Think whatever you want. But I love Pat's call, and his voice was incredible.
He's got a great voice, and so that's why we had to cut him off. We don't have
voice envy.
Yeah, how much room do we have for great voices? So I would just say this: don't you feel better if you stop short of like this interception was the concussion? That interception was
this
the
little
receiver.
piggy went to market.
Maybe, but that doesn't matter. I don't think you need to make excuses for Brock Purdy.
Some people feel like they have to.
You don't have to, because guess what? Go ahead and add the picks in there and blame him on Brock. Still having a great year.
Number 2 in passer rating.
You don't need to make excuses for Brock because those of you out there who think he's playing poorly are wrong. You're flat, crazy wrong. Okay? Quarterbacks throw interceptions. Mike Martz came on the station this morning and said it. Does he know football? He said Kurt Warner had a 3-pick game the year they won the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy is playing really good football. Within really good football, quarterbacks uncork bad throws. All of them. Has anyone watched Josh Allen play football this year? I think he's a really good quarterback.
He's got a higher interception percentage than Brock Purdy does.
Yes, he does. And he has thrown some bad ones, including a bad one against the Bengals in that Sunday night game.
Yep.
Good quarterbacks every year will throw picks. I believe, we cannot go down the road of making Brock Purdy's play the last few weeks something that it isn't. It wasn't sparkly. It wasn't perfect.
No, I like what you're saying because
but he's playing good. He's having a very good year.
And he lost all 3 games. And he gets all 3 losses. If
Correct.
we give him wins, then we also give him losses. And until he says himself, well, I only threw those picks because I was concussed, to me, it is disingenuous and it's unnecessary to hang that on Brock Purdy and say, well, those 2 interceptions were because he was concussed. Your record as a football player, especially in football, your record and your touchdowns and your interceptions are your own. There are some passes that you throw that should be picks that aren't, and some that should be completions that turn into picks. We don't get to go through all the stats and pick and choose. Or you can if you want. You can do and think whatever you want. It's a wonderful country. I personally don't look at any football player knowing that they have to go through a lot, like you say, what they have to prepare their bodies and minds to do every single week it's beyond the scope of what any of us can ever possibly imagine in terms of preparing yourself for what you're going to have to go through.
Listen, I don't really care who likes and does not like Brock Purdy, but I do think there is a new discussion to be had, and it's about the word commitment. And it's not something that that many Americans do well. We have a hard time. Commitment issues, that's a thing, right? So here's what I think people are getting wrong about Brock Purdy is that when something like this happens, you have a 3-game losing streak, there were some fourth-quarter interceptions, we immediately go to what I think is kind of a silly place, which is talking about the job status of Brock Purdy. Like, the 49ers are committed. They're in a relationship, and they are not wavering at all with regard to Brock Purdy. So when you lose 3 football games, and anybody with eyes knows that at minimum, at minimum, the blame on those losses is shared. You want to put portions of it on Brock? Great. There's no way that a normal thinking human is putting those 3 losses all on Brock. No chance. So at minimum, there's that. And then you want to look at the whole picture, how this came to be, that Brock is the quarterback, how he played last year, this year, before the losing streak, all of these things. What we have seen the last 3 games does not constitute a conversation about Brock Purdy's job status. It does not. And sample size be damned. I brought this up yesterday. C.J. Stroud is now considered a future star. The Texans hit a total grand slam with the number 2 pick in the draft. Everybody agrees, right? Right? Why? Because he's winning you a fantasy game? His record is 4-4. His stats sparkle. He's only thrown 1 pick.
Yep.
I love watching the kid play. I think he's great. This is not to smack down C.J. Stroud, but he's had a 4-4 start to his career, and if he loses the next 3 games in a row, guess how many people will talk about C.J. Stroud's job status and what the Texans may or may not want to do the rest of the year or next year? Zero. And I understand the draftism angle there. I also understand the financial angle there.
Expectations, too, because they're 4-4 and nobody thought they'd be 4-4.
And that's part of it. That's part of it.
Yes.
Although, isn't it fascinating how quickly we've arrived at, quote, expectations for Brock Purdy, a 7th-round draft pick who got thrown into the NFL in the middle of the year last year.
Their team is better, though, so the expectations for Brock are higher based on the fact that his team is better. One thing you said yesterday or the day before, and I agreed, and it had to do with C.J. Stroud, it has to do with sample size, because we're all ready to say C.J. Stroud is a star after 8 games, yet with Brock Purdy, we still need to see more after 18 games or whatever the number is now of games that he's started. So it is hard for people to have it both ways, because you look at a rookie like C.J. Stroud and he leads football in interception percentage at 0.4% of his passes have been picked. He's been amazing, and they're better than anyone would have thought, and we're ready to anoint him after 8. But some people, the same people in many corners, are not ready to give Brock Purdy credit because of a small sample.
Right. When he was 12-0, nobody wanted,
right, and his sample is twice the size of C.J. Stroud's.
And of course he's got a better roster, and if you want to say that as a point in C.J.'s favor, I would totally agree with it. Look what C.J.'s working with. What's he really working with? Well, he actually has some really interesting receivers. They're very young.
Yeah.
But Dell looks incredible. Nico Collins is a solid young receiver. His backfield, he's got 2-headed monster out of the backfield. They're okay. He's got a good tight end. I love his coach. His name is D'Amico Ryans. I think he's really good. But it's a bunch of young. There's a bunch of young around him. And so it feels like he's doing it by himself. The funny thing is, what's it? What is it that he's doing? Oh, all of you found something in the 12th round of your fantasy league that's now helping you win games.
Well, the it is he's winning more games for Houston than we all probably thought that they would have.
Okay, that's
the Niners are 5-3, and we all think that they should be 6-2. So they're actually 1 game worse than they probably should be. And the Texans are 4-4, and we all think that they should be 1-7 or 0-8, even though we didn't give enough credit to their new coach and their young roster.
Did we think they were going to be that bad? I didn't think Houston was going to be like the bottom of the league.
We didn't think they'd be 4-4 and sniffing a playoff spot.
No, I didn't think they'd be 4-4. But you know what I mean? Like you can look at, and I don't want to do Houston Texans radio, but like,
nice.
Do you know what I mean? Like the Houston Texans, their 4 wins, they're impressive win. They're trying to do, the 49ers are trying to do what Houston already did. Houston went into Jacksonville and smacked them by 20. 37-17. That was a hell of a performance by Stroud. Other than that, right? Houston's beat Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Tampa Bay with a last-second flurry. Okay. I mean, it's not like they've got all this signature stuff that's taken place. It's just to kind of point out the commitment. I think the 49ers are completely committed.
No doubt.
to Brock Purdy. So every time we have a loss, this is not something you do in the NFL, in my opinion, where every time somebody loses a game, you have a job status conversation. You do
Are
that.
we having that here?
Oh, there's a lot of I've heard it as recently as 2 hours ago.
Jeez.
With regard to this particular game this Sunday, these games that are coming up the rest of the year are incredibly important to decide the future of the quarterback position with the 49ers.
Wow. I guess I'm not in the same conversation circles.
I think the idea that the 49ers will be again looking for another new quarterback next year,
it's nonsense.
Is crazy. Like they would have to lose them all. He would have to be terrible.
If they don't make the playoffs, then we can talk about possibly what you would do,
I guess,
in the draft. Now, I do think that's interesting in terms of the draft, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the 49ers are probably going to take a quarterback in the draft. It's a question of how high they draft one, because this is a very quarterback-rich draft based on everything that I've seen. Now, you're not going to use first-round capital on a QB.
Boy, I hope not.
I mean, I can't imagine that.
Get a left tackle for crying out loud, please.
Or a corner.
Please.
Can we get a corner?
Yeah, we can get a corner.
And let's get another running back in the third round. That always seems to go well.
That's a rule.
That's a no-brainer.
Unless they want to get another kicker. All right.